How are you doing? I'm back. What do you think of the new setup? I have Christmas lights, I got some shrubbery and some books. I thought I'd liven it up a little bit. And today I want to talk about sensitivity. I want to talk about being oversensitive and what that means. I think sensitivity is a spectrum. You can be very highly sensitive or not very sensitive at all, and it's not a bad thing in itself. I don't like it when it's used as a generalized term, like a negative term for somebody, like you're being too sensitive, stop, that's too sensitive. This generation today is too sensitive. Why are you being so overly sensitive? I think that can talk people out of explaining their experiences sometimes, and that's never good. I liked what a speaker said once when they said this new generation isn't oversensitive, they're just sensitive. We know how to explain things with our words a little bit more than our parents and grandparents did. We're more in tune with our emotions. We're more encouraged to speak on our emotions, and there's so much more awareness in regards to mental health now. And I've always liked that take on it, that we're not oversensitive, we're just sensitive, and that's okay. We notice injustice in the world and we call it out. We call out things like bullying and harassment and we don't let them slide, you know? So that's my take on it. I've always been a sensitive person, and it really bothered me when I was younger. I hated it, and I always tried to hide it. I never wanted to be that kid who cried in front of other kids or seemed like I was scared or nervous or anxious about anything, even though I really was. So this is a poem about that. Right now it's just called My Oversensitivity, but maybe I'll change the title later on. I have always been sensitive my entire life. My body is sensitive, my skin is sensitive, my heart is sensitive, my hair is sensitive. It cannot hold much or take much without showing, without tearing or bruising. The first person to notice this, or maybe the first person to say it out loud to me, was my first third grade teacher, Mrs. Provost. She had always been my favorite, the first teacher who really saw me and took an interest when all I felt was invisible, yet my shell was constantly on display. A husk of a face, the smart black girl, her mouth covering up any insecurity. This teacher named the beast that had long tortured me, that had taken my tongue whenever cruelty came to silence me. Mrs. Provost was a tough teacher and did not allow mess, but she always opened her heart up, and all I saw was the kindness wrapped inside there. Mrs. Provost was always fair. Her third grade students gave feedback every quarter on their progress reports. Mrs. Provost pulled me aside one day to talk about my grades and the comments we had written about ourselves. I enjoyed all the moments of quiet self-reflection up until that very point. Too often, my life felt like a quick do or die, an anxious choice, a wringing of hands. Would I ever do it right? Just follow orders, ace the class, smile more, Ambria. Quickly, Mrs. Provost skipped past the grades, mostly pass-fail lessons if I remember, and went straight to the feedback section at the bottom of the page, in which we had scribbled down our class commentary some 2 weeks earlier. I instantly spoke around it. There is no arguing back in my home. Retaliation is always coming in a subtle way. What a fool I was to give feedback, to be honest. I started to erase what I had written. She gently told me to stop, and that she already knew. Mrs. Provost asked me if I was sensitive. My stomach churned. She spoke too slowly and too softly for my tainted skin to take. The only thing I could remember that I had written is that I did not like it when she yelled at a particular boy in the class. The boy was often out of line, disrespectful, or disengaged, but also trying, and also just a boy. When she yelled, her thunder shook up the whole room, and I became frozen in the fog. I couldn't move, I couldn't think, I couldn't look around. I became that boy, instantly in his place, breathless while being yelled at, nailed down to a chair. I prayed for it to end whenever it would start. I have always hated the sound of yelling. I have gotten caught up in it and then cry when I am done. I have always hated pain of any measure. Whether it happened to my sister or cousin or father or stranger on the news, it all looked and felt the same to me. I read their vivid story or heard a hushed retelling, or I was there myself, watching from behind their corner as their innocence was slowly siphoned out of them. It was all happening to me at the same time. I will no longer bear witness. I once looked to hurt others before they could hurt me, before the sound of their cries could reach my ears. I was already gone, and this is how I learned to cope. Yes, I was sensitive. I hadn't realized that's what I was. I hadn't realized that I was holding my breath the entire time. I hadn't known what to call it then, except being a freak, or mean, or wrong, or weird. We don't teach our kids the right words. There is no name for this feeling. The opposite of the urge to laugh when one stumbles, but instead the instinct to gasp and rush in. The flippantness with which a child can say, "Oh, I don't care," but knowing for me it was the boldest kind of lie and that I cared so much about everything. I always fought it back, to seem cool, to seem the same, to seem sane. But I feel everything on the same exact level, from hurting to loving to laughing to tears. Like a hearing aid turned all the way up, there is no discernment in the noise. How could I be a part of this world and not be in it? How could I love anything, ever, only halfway? Over dramatic, but that's who I am. Over enthusiastic, but it serves me well. Long ago, I decided to step back from living in the margins. I took my shot at life and risked all the pain for little glory, and now I have found a semblance of comfort. I became the giver, sacrificed my heart to understand another living soul, and knew it would always be worth it. To not ever feel alone again, so that a child would not ever feel alone again. Unless it is our choice, our decision to explore everything for all the rest of time. To feel unabashedly, to seek out the stone cold and look them in the eye but once. And if they ask us back, to greet them with gratitude, for it is never easy to open up one's heart or soul. We are all such precious things. I can say this for those who cannot feel it all, for those who are afraid. I am here, on the other side, embracing this oversensitivity. I am but a handshake, but a heartbeat away. So that's just a poem about being sensitive, and also empathetic. I've never thought of myself as an empath, but I am definitely somebody who feels really deeply all the time. Sometimes I can be emotional, and that's the range of emotions. Sometimes I anger quickly, quick temper, or I get sad easily, just watching a commercial can make me cry sometimes. And we yo-yo back in between all these, getting scared easily, getting, feeling anxious or neurotic, being triggered for that easily. I think a lot of it relates, but it's okay to feel this way. It's okay to not be strong all the time. And even if you are sensitive, it doesn't necessarily mean you're not strong. You can be a tough person, and still feel sensitive and still call out bad things when you see them, and changing your language up to make people feel more comfortable around you. I think it's all possible. We all do it every single day. And this is my rant on defending sensitivity, because I always get defensive about that, being the queen of sensitive over here. All right, so that's the end of that one. I'll see you in the next one. Check the description box if you need any information on mental health resources in your area. Okay, bye.